If you have an active sex life or you like to, zinc is the #1 supplement for men. If you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend it. Hello gentlemen, I've been getting constant reminders that it's time to talk about zinc, and honestly it really is time, because this is one of those substances that had a huge impact on me and helped me get out of the mess I was in. For a while you can check out my previous videos to see just how deep that mess was. In this video, I'll share all the theoretical points, practical tips, basically everything I know. So this is a complete guide to zinc, and most importantly, something I've been asked for many times. I'll talk about the different forms, how to understand them, what they mean, and what their bioavailability is. Is zinc in principle for regular use? I've been taking it for more than 5 years now. There's an old video on the channel about one of my first experiences. It's more about emotions and impressions. Here you'll get a solid theoretical foundation right now. For me in general, zinc is one of the main elements that I include in almost any combination, whether it's during consultations or for specific issues, because firstly, this substance can really be a revelation for people who haven't taken it before, especially for men. And secondly, many people are actually deficient in zinc, but I'll talk more about that later. Hello ladies and gentlemen. The video of course was filmed a while ago, but actually everything is still relevant. All the information is up to date, so I just have a few additions. First of all, both shops have announced decent discounts since yesterday, timed to a specific date, which is very symbolic for us. Secondly, for the supplement, we chose the Piccolinate form from Nu, and this actually reflects my current opinion on which form is better. And thirdly, at the time of filming the video, I hadn't yet delved so deeply into the topic of monitoring my own health indicators and getting lab tests done. Now, of course, this topic has been thoroughly explored as always. In the description, you can find a link on how to get lab tests done, including for zinc, in a cost-effective and high-quality way. That's all for now. Watch the video for more details. Thank you for your attention. Too much zinc is bad, too little zinc is also bad. You definitely shouldn't overdo it with zinc. It's not a completely safe element, it can cause side effects. And naturally, the most correct approach is to first get tested and identify any deficiency. In fact, according to many studies, even meta-analyses, which you can easily find yourself on PubMed, for example, I won't do it for you, about 2 billion people on Earth suffer from zinc deficiency. How did zinc affect me? I've already talked about this. First and foremost, it's the immune system. Believe it or not, that's up to you. After I started taking zinc, I stopped getting sick altogether. Of course, there were other substances involved too, and my overall energy improved. But that was the general trend. And then someone named Vashan wrote to me saying, how can you say things like that without any proof? He said I should provide some kind of proof and all that. Well, I already replied to him that I'm not a scientist here who has to back up every little thing I say with evidence. But basically, I did a little bit of Googling. I found a whole bunch of studies on zinc and the immune system. And honestly, there's really no doubt about it. You can easily find them yourself. So if you have a weak immune system, zinc is the first thing I recommend. Next, the effects of stress. For me, the biggest issue was hair loss. At one point, I was honestly afraid I might go bald. After I started taking zinc, that problem basically faded into the background. I can't say that my hair stopped falling out completely, but it's much less now. Probably about 5 times less, to be honest. Next, white spots on my nails. To be honest, they disappeared for a year when I started taking zinc, but then they came back. Just a quick clarification. The white spots completely disappeared when I started taking B vitamins. But overall, there are a lot fewer of them now. I used to have them on almost all my fingers, but as you can see, now there aren't any at all. By the way, these white spots on the nails are called leukonychia, and it's one of the most informative indicators of zinc deficiency in the body. The next thing is my condition after ejaculation. I've already mentioned that I have some mild symptoms of post-orgasmic illness syndrome, meaning that after sex or masturbation I feel a bit drained, but before it used to be about 10 times worse. That is before I started taking zinc. The thing is, zinc is involved in spermatogenesis. So if you have an active sex life and, let's say, enjoy having fun, then this supplement is basically #1 for you. From what I see in my consultations, guys who, let's say, tend to overdo it with their sexual activity, who kind of push their reproductive system too hard, usually have problems. All these zinc deficiencies, you could basically go down the list, are very pronounced in skin condition. Especially facial skin is a constant ongoing problem. After taking zinc, this aspect improved significantly. And also, during those same consultations, the potential of using zinc to treat acne often stands out. For objective reasons, I can't really confirm or deny this, but this point does exist. These are the points that I personally, without a doubt, would highlight. It's also worth noting the undeniable influence of zinc on the production of certain hormones, including, and this is very important, testosterone. In fact, in many testosterone boosters, zinc is actually the main ingredient. Although the price of this complex, that is this booster, is about 10 times higher than the largest jar of pure zinc on iHerb. Actually, I would also mention from memory that zinc has quite a significant effect. In general, on average, an adult human body contains about 2 grams of our subject of today, in the form of its compounds, which are found mainly in the prostate, muscles, liver, and pancreas. Here's a little insight. There are 10 milligrams of zinc in 50 milliliters of male semen, so you can draw your own conclusions about the cause and effect relationship I mentioned earlier. Once again, zinc for men is number 1. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Every day, 90% of this element leaves the human body through urine, and in men, it is further reduced through ejaculation. Naturally, this means that this element is essential every day, not just for a month or so, but every single day. Now let's talk about one of the most pressing topics, one of the most complex, urgent, and rarely discussed on YouTube. The topic we'll discuss is the different forms of zinc, their bioavailability, how they differ, and which one to choose. The main thing you need to understand is that the difference between the forms primarily determines the difference in bioavailability, that is, how much zinc your body will actually absorb from the amount you take, and also affects the likelihood of negative side effects after taking it. All these acetates, chelates, glycinates, and so on are mainly binding components that hold the zinc. In other words, they are the molecules that bind to zinc to make it possible for us to take and absorb it. That is, the zinc itself doesn't change because of this. And finally, let's go through all the main forms and figure out which one is best. The worst, cheapest, and most common form is zinc sulfate, which is exactly what gets stuffed into all these Russian pharmaceutical products. That's why the price isn't very high, for example. Zincteral is a favorite among some people who just don't learn. You can buy it if you want, but then don't complain about having diarrhea, burping, or even all of it at once, and in general, having problems with your digestive system, even though you supposedly wanted to improve your health. Well, you know, people like that often love to get involved in these kinds of things. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments that this is just a placebo, doesn't work, and so on. Well, that's it. Classic stuff, basically. If you're curious and don't believe me, you can follow one of the links in the description to the American site iHerb and check out the forms there. See if they have this sulfate. After that, your questions will answer themselves. Its bioavailability is the lowest naturally, around 48%. Next, zinc oxide is also not the best, and it's also cheap. You'll find it in all sorts of ointments and powders. But it's a little bit better, of course, than sulfate. I'll repeat, this is definitely not the option to choose. Its bioavailability is also 48%. Next is glycinate or biglycinate. It has 59% bioavailability. This is already a chelated form of the trace element, meaning it's bound to an amino acid, in this case, glycine. It's better and quite usable. Next is gluconate with 60.9% bioavailability. It's a common, inexpensive form and generally without side effects. Well, at least none that are obvious. Piccolinate has 60.9% bioavailability. It's a compound with picolinic acid and, as practice shows, is one of the best forms overall. In fact, it's most often recommended for pregnant women and children, which you have to agree is a clear sign of its quality. By the way, sometimes the zinc form is simply called chelate, so it's not a separate form, but rather, let's say, a category. And you can always clarify the specific form. Another chelated form is acetate, also 60.9% bioavailability, also known as zinc acetate dihydrate. It is also well absorbed and is mainly used in the production of cold remedies. And another one is citrate, which is an organic compound with citric acid. It stands out for its maximum bioavailability of 61% and pleasant taste, that is, well, compared to other forms. And I'll highlight 2 more interesting forms. One is monomethionine. This is also a chelated compound, combining the mineral with the amino acid methionine. Why do I highlight this form, although it is not the most popular? Because this is exactly the form of zinc that you often buy on my recommendations. I think this is the first link if you look in the description. That is, this is zinc with copper from Gerau. In principle, it is a normal form both in price and quality. And the second one I would like to highlight is whole food zinc. You could say that this is actually a separate type of zinc. The thing is, these whole food minerals are absorbed by the body as if they were obtained directly from food. Accordingly, they have, in principle, the maximum bioavailability and effectiveness. According to some sources, it even reaches up to 100%. This is actually one of the best forms, but it's also the most expensive. If you don't care about money, you can transfer it to me first. Secondly, I recommend buying exactly this whole food form. There are also some other forms like glycerate, sulfide, and orotate. They are also used in the production of various pharmaceutical products. But they are much less common, so I absolutely won't be covering them here at all. I sincerely hope that's perfectly clear. Chelated whole food forms are truly good. Sulfate and oxide are essentially junk. However, sometimes even a good form might not work for a particular user, so if you have the opportunity, it's worth experimenting. Now let's talk about dosages. There are also some points here that are often not clear to everyone. For example, the recommended daily allowance is 11 milligrams for men and 8 for women, but tablets are produced with almost 50 milligrams each. Those who were paying close attention might have guessed that, first of all, this is about bioavailability, and secondly, that these recommended values in the real situation, as they say, are quite different. Especially for men, particularly those who are sexually active and also do sports. For them, this recommended amount can increase 2, 3, or even 5 times. Therefore, the general approach here is to allow for a reasonable slight increase in dosages. Naturally, I understand that many of the points I've discussed might be unclear. Your head might be spinning right now, wondering how to take all this properly and as effectively as possible. No doubt, it's a lot to take in. Honestly, at first, it might be hard to figure everything out at once, but study the information further, watch the video again, and it will become clearer. Well, if you want, I can do all of this for you myself. That's actually why I offer my consultations. In any case, unlike many so-called top biohackers, I still recommend not exceeding a dosage of more than 30 milligrams of absorbed zinc. Of course, there's another very important point regarding copper and iron. Zinc and copper are often called the two main antagonists. They mutually inhibit each other's absorption in the intestines. This happens because these two elements share the same transport system, and it makes sense. It's easy to imagine that if you take a lot of one on a regular basis, you'll end up with less of the other. So I strongly recommend that if your course lasts more than a month, you add copper to your stack. And the general rule is to separate the intake times of these two elements. It's the same situation with iron. Take it at a different time. You don't need to come up with anything special regarding timing. Of course, there are different approaches, but I recommend taking it in the morning, an hour before meals, or at least 40 minutes before eating. Well, if you're skeptical about supplements, although I still recommend taking them from time to time, even if you are, then of course you should add foods rich in zinc to your diet. These are primarily oysters, pumpkin and sunflower seeds, sesame, meat, cheese, oatmeal, and dark chocolate with legumes. I highly recommend treating yourself to zinc, especially for people who also treat themselves to alcohol, and also for all kinds of vegetarians and vegans, because fruits contain very little zinc. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. After iron, zinc is the most common trace element in the body. Its importance is truly hard to overestimate. I really recommend it to everyone. Share your feedback about zinc in the comments. Often these comments turn out to be quite emotional because zinc is one of those substances that tends to have a pronounced effect. If you have a specific desire to change or work on yourself, sign up for a consultation. Right now, I'm genuinely interested in doing this, so the price is purely symbolic. Let's work together. Well, that's basically it. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.